Avowed, the big hope for MMO action RPGs.
When it comes to the story for Avowed, we actually have a ton of details from a recent blog posting by the developers of the game that detailed new information about the game's story as well as a new companion. Now in the article they said this, and I quote, "In Avowed, as the envoy sent directly by the Adirian Emperor, your adventure kicks off in Paradis, the bustling port city at the heart of the Living Lands. This vibrant hub has been shaped and reshaped by generations of pioneers, each leaving their mark, often in blood, on the Living Lands. It's also the epicenter of tension between..."
Okay, very cool, but not exactly what I want to hear about, honestly. But it's good that a place that you start in has a backstory. It's pretty lame when you go to a city and it has no backstory. Is there a river next to it? Yes. Is there a sawmill? Oh, well, yes. So is this like some kind of sawmill river city? Well, no, actually, we're farmers. But there's no fields. That's one of the worst things ever in gaming. Everything needs to have at least some sort of backstory so it doesn't feel hollow and empty.
Between Adirian forces and the locals, who are suspicious of Adir's growing presence. They continued by saying rumors and hysteria have also begun to bubble up in Paradis surrounding the Dream Scourge, a mysterious plague of the soul, as it afflicts people, animals, and even the land itself. No one knows how it spread, but many have come to recognize and dread the symptoms. First, victims experience confusion, disorientation, and hallucinations. As it worsens, they become unpredictable and erratic in their behavior, as if trapped in a waking nightmare. In the final...
So your typical zombie outbreak virus. Got it. Doesn't seem too bad, honestly. Zombie outbreak viruses are pretty fine, in my opinion. They're fun, at least.
Stage, they turn into dream thralls, their bodies twisted with fungal growths, and their minds and souls are overtaken by the plague. They then said, watching our newest trailer, you'll hear three distinct voices speaking to you. First is the Emperor, who believes the Dream Scourge could develop, if unchecked, into a dire threat to Adir. He sends you into this wild frontier to uncover the source of the plague and put it into it. And then we have Inquisitor Lodwyn, the leader of the Steel Garrote, an extremist paladin order from Adir, believes there's something more sinister at play and calls on you.
Extremist paladins? That sounds so much more fun and better than just regular paladins. I'm in.
Not only for you to eradicate the Dream Scourge, but also bring the island to unruly factions to heal. Meanwhile, your companion Giada perceives a larger and more mysterious force at work in the land and urges you to embrace it in all of its awe and chaos. As a stranger to these shores, you'll need to navigate your relationship with three of these factions, work to uncover the source of...
Having three factions just that are like that is also already honestly pretty big. Typically, what do we have nowadays? Two factions most of the time and stuff like this, which is kind of boring. Three is pretty good. Fallout 4, how many factions did that have? The Minutemen is not a faction, let's be completely real, they're just a backup. The Institute, the Railroad, and the Brotherhood. That's what you had. Three factions. And, well, again, Fallout 4 is not the greatest game ever made, but at least it's still something interesting. So I like hearing that there's three factions.
The Dream Scourge and prevent it from plunging the Living Lands into madness. They then stated...
Also, all of this sounds pretty distinct. If you follow the main story with your companion, you probably uncover something that's happening and maybe the Dream Scourge is not bad. You join up with the crazy paladins and you cleanse the land and whatnot. Or, you know, you just do what the king or whatever told you to and it's kind of fine. Both three of these possibilities sound pretty distinct, and 100% they will most likely come in full conflict with one another, which is going to be epic.
Supporting you on your journey are four companions, including Giada, a brilliant and outspoken animator who studies soul energy. She has endured suspicion and ire for her work, but like you, she desperately seeks a solution to the Dream Scourge. And she is a vital ally who will help you understand the unique metaphysical ecosystem of the Living Lands.
Okay.
Remember, the Dream Scourge is not only the thing you're up against, tensions simmer between the locals and Adir, and the island itself seems to be rebelling against itself. And every choice you make could tip the balance of fate toward one faction or the other. Who will you align with, who will you destroy, and who will ultimately control the Living Lands? Next up, we also have some
It would be cool if you had the options of allying yourself with the paladins, but for example, convincing them that, wait a minute, you don't need to kill everyone, but somebody let the roam free. You know, something like Fallout New Vegas, the Yes Man scenario, where you're supposed to choose which of the strip's families actually survive. That's pretty decent.
details regarding the game's quests, some of the skills, party members, and more. Now, this is actually coming from the Xbox podcast where they did the deep dive. They had members of the Avowed team and revealed a ton more details. Now, they first started off by introducing the Emerald Stair region, which you'll go to fairly early into the game. They stated that Avowed's dynamic day and night cycle will change the atmosphere of each of the game's fantastical biomes significantly, and the Emerald Stair...
That's cool, that's cool. Changing biomes is pretty nice. I mean, if the biomes don't even change, that's fine, as long as the biome itself is interesting and cool. But if the biomes change, that's always a good thing. Well, usually that's always a good thing, I should say.
After sunset is particularly gorgeous. The nearby town of Fior is home to an enclave of animacers who study the science of souls, including the Dream Scourge plague. They then said, speaking of animacers, the gameplay we saw showed the player on a quest to help them, but before we got there, we got to meet one of the game's soon-to-be companions, Yatzli. Patel described Yatzli as a little lightning ball with a lot of personality, pointing out that she can get a little risque.
Oh boy, a neurodivergent companion. Yeah, that's fine.
And we see very quickly that her dialogue immediately takes a flirtatious tone. This also shows off Obsidian's trademark of engaging dialogue and choices. Certain attributes or character backgrounds you choose will unlock new options, which can...
Well, the Outer Worlds didn't have that much engaging dialogue, or whatever you want to call it. So, the fact that here they are taking risks is good, because one of the big problems in the Outer Worlds was that the dialogues were just kind of bland. They didn't take risks, there wasn't anything too much there, and it was kind of a little bit dull and boring. So now the dialogues actually take risks. That's really good. That instantaneously sounds appealing.
Can add more personality or even change the outcomes of your conversations. Yatzli sends us off to collect a godless vase, an artifact of the people she studies, and the player is plunged into combat even...
Oh, my nose is so itchy, what the hell? I just finished putting in storage a couple of sacks of granules for winter. I think my nose is full of dust. Ugh, it's so annoying.
Been using a mixture
Feels
of
bad,
spells,
man.
ranged attacks, and melee. We saw the player struggling to take down even smaller enemies at this point, and it's here that we saw the game's party camp feature. They said that it's a narrative hub and also your upgrade hub. That's where you'll get to know your companions better, and you can get to know their backstories and get to know them better as individuals. You could also hear them getting to know one another through their banters at camp, which is always super fun to eavesdrop on. They then said that one thing that we wanted to create with a party camp was the sense that you're adventuring and exploring together through this big wilderness, and all of these different landscapes, and party camp is this quiet space where you could huddle together and share a moment of respite. And then they said the pace and tone of everything is a lot slower and quieter. Next up,
That's nice. I think people are really happy with the idea of a resting spot, a campfire from Baldur's Gate 3, honestly. So this can most likely only be a bonus. Because, you know, interactions, storytelling of the companions, all of that could happen here. And if it's good, my god. Again, I have high hopes for this game. I have really high hopes for this game. I think it could be an absolute hit of a success.
They said we also got a good look at the game's upgrade system for skills and abilities. You could upgrade your skills and abilities anywhere as you level throughout the course of the game. On certain level up milestones, we'll get to upgrade our attributes, and on
The skill system, we already saw this. It honestly, it's pretty basic. But as long as the animations are going to be good, I don't think basic is necessarily bad here, obviously. But, you know, plus 25% damage, plus 40% damage, plus 50% damage. Not exactly exhilarating stuff right here. But as long as there's, again, as long as there's enough difference of a variety in attacks, weapons, and whatnot, this shouldn't be a problem.
every level up milestone, we'll get to pick a new ability. This quickly bears fruit as we see the Phantom Flame skill unlocked and used to reduce a previously blocked path to ashes, but it wasn't the only option. We wanted to try as much as possible to give different abilities that players can pick up solutions in combat, but also solutions in
Well, as you can see, there is a lot, honestly, here, but, you know, would be cool if there was more. More is always better, typically.
Exploration. So there's always more than one way through a barrier.
You don't want to end up in a situation where people are looking at your skill tree and saying, oh, this is like Diablo 4 skill twig. Neat. No one's gonna say that.
You'll have weapons, your own abilities, spells, weapon enhancements, sometimes even your companions who can use their environmental abilities to help you get through barriers.
Cool.
That openness to problem solving is never clearer than in the other quests that we saw in the demo. Having recovered the vase for Yatsli, a key part of our journey is to unlock her as a permanent companion. We saw the player set off to recover the Adragon heart for the animacers. This mystical object is being held by the Delimgon, a territorial species who don't take kindly to adventurers passing through their land. Initially, we saw the player take a hands-on approach battling through the Delimgon and using every combat ability at their disposal to reach their queen, who immediately attacks the player for killing so many of her followers. The demo was then reloaded and we saw the player utilizing in-game currency to fully respec their character, adding multiple ranger abilities that allow them to take a stealthy approach, using the shadowing beyond skill, which renders them invisible for as long as their essence is intact and without engaging in any enemies. They took multiple passages to reach the Delimgon queen without any combat. In doing so, they found her in a far better mood, gifting them the heart and letting them go in peace. They said it's emblematic of how open Avowed will be to interpretation and how your choices will allow you to take different paths to get what you need. And
just something like this is cool, because you know the reality is people are if people are gonna do the stealth approach, it's gonna be the stealth kill everything inside approach. But a chance like this, you just stealth past everything and do the thing. That's awesome. These are the choices that people want. These are the choices in games that people talk about constantly. Again, let me just tell you again one of my favorite experiences in Fallout 4 of all things. When I was playing that game for the first time, I wanted to control the Minutemen, but actually be a part of the Institute. And if you are high enough in the Minutemen, when you start doing the quest lines for the Institute, there was one moment that felt really good. You needed to retrieve a scientist from the Institute from a farmhouse, and the Minutemen were there. And you had an option of just talking to the Minutemen and saying, hey, I'm the big cheese here, you are all my underlings. Yeah, there's some Institute boys behind me, you know what's up, baby? And yeah, just scatter off. I got this, wink wink. And the Minutemen do that because you're their boss, you're their general, or whatever the title that they gave you was. And then you can just, without any combat, actually just go in and do what you need to do. It was awesome. Choices like this are amazing. And this is pretty much a hidden choice. If this wasn't a part of the demonstration what you can do with choices, I bet most people would never do it, and then there would be 2 years later after this game comes out, and there's like, did you know you can just stealth and talk to her, and she's like, okie dokie, and everything's cool. Stuff like this is what good games are made of. Options, choices. When something you decide and do matters and has well, it is a scripted outcome still, but it has more than one outcome, and that is great. That is great. I absolutely love hearing about this stuff.
Skills in particular are totally open to how you choose to use them. You can really mix and match between them freely. If you want to be an all wizard, you could build entirely through that skill tree. If you want to mix and match, make a battle mage, or make someone who can be a bit stealthy in certain moments and a little bit more aggressive in others, you have the freedom to do that. Next up, we actually have a developer Q&A over
The 3-person has human teeth. That's interesting.
gameplay and so over on Windows Central, where we have even more details about Avowed's gameplay and so much more. So the first question was asked, can you tell us more about the gameplay improvements in Avowed? To which the developer responded, the team revisited the combat and mechanics based on player feedback, making the combat more responsive and improved animation.
Yeah, this was the thing I was talking about when we first heard about Avowed. A lot of combat did not look that pleasant. A lot of combat did not look good at all. And now it's better. Now, obviously, I do think there's a mile to improve here. For example, I talked about this previously. But when you cut this stuff, it would be nice if you finish it off with a slashing attack, you know. The little grape thingamajiggy gets actually sliced in half or something like that. That would add, that is so little, but it would add so much to the experience. It would be absolutely, unquestionably amazing.
The team revisited the combat and mechanics based on player feedback, making the combat more responsive and improved animations, VFX feedback, and audio. They aimed for visceral combat inspired by the systems used in Warhammer Vermintide games. They then said, how was the player freedom addressed in Avowed? To which the devs said, Avowed will not lock players into set classes. Instead, players can pick and choose their abilities as they progress, and even respect their character. This system allows for flexible and varied playstyles similar to Skyrim. And then will players be able to experience a completely pacifist run? They said the combat will be necessary at times, though some encounters can be avoided through dialogue or making different choices earlier.
How do you feel about a full pacifist run? I'm like kind of flipped on that. It's kind of cool that you could theoretically do it, but at the same time, is it worth it? Don't know. Don't really know.
The game. Full pacifism is not an option. Will Avowed have a first-person and third-person perspective? To which the developer said yes. It was then asked how important are choices and consequences in Avowed. They responded, choices will significantly impact the story, side quests, and character interactions. Some consequences will be immediate, while others will influence your game's ending. It was then asked how are companions integrated into Avowed. They said companions are integral to the story and will have meaningful interactions with the player and each other. While there are no romantic relationships, the companions will add.
Yeah, this combat. You need a little bit more umph. I mean, it does kind of look decent when you slice it, but a little bit more umph would be pretty nice. I think we can all agree with that, right?
Depth through their personal conflicts and backstories. Players can...
Well, admittedly, this is the boss battle, I have to say. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, but this is definitely the same. This is definitely the boss at the end.
Engage with the companions at the party camp, which is also serves as a hub, like we said. And then finally, why did Obsidian decide against including multiplayer in Avowed? To which the answer was, the decision was to focus on a single player experience and driven by the challenges.
I don't think it's a bad thing that a game like this doesn't have multiplayer. We have plenty of games that have multiplayer, and games that have multiplayer always are, oh, I want to play them forever. I like games that you just play for like, 20, 30, 40 hours, and a game like this, you're probably going to play more, and you just finish it. There is no shame in being a game like that. It's pretty awesome. We don't honestly get that anymore too much. And I think, again, a game like this is it's great.
Of integrated multiplayer without compromising the game's quality. The team wanted to ensure a robust, narrative-driven RPG that Obsidian is known for. Well, guys, that's gonna wrap it up with this video. Let me know.
Yeah, that was pretty decent. Again, looking forward to Avowed. Anyway, Vesh Nemo, 10 out of 10. Bye-bye.